what are your favorite tools and toys in your studio or your creative space?
I keep a pretty simple environment. I mean, I have, a full rig for doing mock-ups and, and recording and producing and mixing. And but I'm not one of those guys to invest tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in gear and equipment and software and things like that, because I would rather spend money hiring people who specialize in the various sub-disciplines. Like I've mixed a lot of scores myself, like I mixed like some games of mine that I mixed were like I did a game called Horn. I did the remake of Leisure Suit Larry. And I kind of half mixed the Banner Saga. It's complicated to explain what I mean by that, but the long and short of it is that sometimes I do mix myself, but it's never my preference. I have a mixer that is a genius that I love to work with, and he did the Rendezvous, and he did Assassin's Creed, and he'll be doing Absu and the Banner Saga 2 and a bunch of other scores. He recorded and mixed the Journey piano album that I released, Transfiguration, and things like that, and work with him a lot. I like to hire people to do those tasks because, to me, I really cling to the idea that music is, for me, my job as a composer is the abstract job of creating the music itself. And I don't aspire to be the one-stop shop production suite that is very common these days. That said, I am that because I have to be a lot of the time. But I've built my setup to cater towards the writing process. So my studio there's a lot of gear there, but it's also, I use it in a simple way. I don't, I start with pencil and paper, or pen and paper, because I smudge it out if it's pencil and then I can't read it again. But everything sketches initially with the pen, and then I do my mock-ups in Digital Performer, and then I will move into the orchestration phase, which I either will do myself, or if I don't have time, I have a wonderful orchestrator I use named Susie Sider, who has she's also the conductor of the Pokemon concert tour that's been going all over the world. I think it's Pokemon Evolutions is what it's called.
Yeah, it's actually coming to Australia soon.
I know. We have to schedule her orchestration for me pretty far in advance now, because she's constantly on the road conducting, which is really cool because it makes her all the more brilliant of an orchestrator, because she's in front of orchestras now even more often than I am.
Wow.
And so she has developed a really, because I've always prided myself in having a very fine-tuned sense of orchestral balance, and that's one of those things that samples don't in any way teach. And I've always worked hard because I've always spent time in front of orchestras ever since I was a kid. And so that's one of those sort of native pursuits for me. But Susie has a similar background, but she's also now conducting like all day, seemingly. So,
wow.
In fact, like, we're going to be recording the Banner Saga 2 soon. She literally is coming from a show in like Portland or something the night before, conducting and then landing, and then I'll be conducting the Banner Saga 2 and she'll be in the booth, which is our normal routine. And so in other words, I have my process with my tools involves turning my DP files over to her, and there's another guy we work with named Mike Miller who is involved in the notation process, and then I also have a copyist that makes all the parts for me. And that's something I'll never do again. I did that for years myself when there was no budget or anything like that. And now if there's no budget, I'll just go out of pocket, because I'm like, I refuse to make parts. It's so tedious.
I know
and if
your
it's
pain.
done wrong, the session falls apart. If the parts are done in a rushed, impatient way, which is probably how I'd make them, you're setting yourself up for failure. And so, just can't work. And so, in any case, that was kind of an overview. But the long and short of it is that I like a simple setup.
That's lovely. And when you were here, met your lovely wife, Megan Wintory, and you're both music professionals and creative professionals. So you both clearly understand the demands and pressures of this world that you inhabit.
Sure, yeah.
How'd you guys go about keeping your lives balanced, or specifically you, or in relation to each other?
I mean, that's, being honest, that's hard. It's been very difficult, especially from my side of it, sort of pulling my weight as a good husband. To be frankly honest and very real with you, I spend so much time in my studio, which is not at home. I don't work from home. I have a space that's a few miles drive, which is on purpose, not to get away from home, but just so that when I'm home, I'm really there, and when I'm here, I'm really here. It serves both ends to do that, and it also gives me. I much prefer having meetings in places that aren't in my home. You know, I've just always felt more comfortable that way for whatever reason. It's not because It's strange because I go way out of my way to have very friendly working relationships with people, where having them over at my house or whatever is not a turnoff intrinsically, but it's something about having a creative space just feels like, here's our room that's sole function in life is for us to be creative in.
Yeah.
And I suppose I could recreate that at home. Certainly many composers do, but it's never really been my thing. I may experiment with it someday, but in any case, because I'm here and it's so easy to just lose time and suddenly it's 1 a.m, that's always been a struggle. In our case, because we've been together a long time, we're actually high school sweethearts, have been together since we were 15. I say that not because it's adorable, though it is a little adorable. That's actually central to that work-life balance, because she's known that this was something I wanted to do since we were kids.
Yeah.
Long before I ever had a career doing it. And so she's been able to celebrate that I've been busy with an appreciation for the fact that this is a lifelong pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, sometimes, we'll go long stretches of barely seeing each other because I'm working, she has never lost sight of that's a negative side effect of a positive thing. And it would be very easy to lose sight of that if we didn't have this really long history together, where she's seen it grow from truly nothing, from a pipe dream of some kid in Denver to someone who incrementally actually managed to find some kind of path for himself.
Yeah.
So it's really, if she and I had been married a year, we'd probably have 1 year left before she would leave me, honestly, because just out of negligence. But that said, the work-life balance thing is a big subject for me, especially this year has been a very difficult one. I've had 2 major losses this year in my life. My father died at the very beginning of the year, 5 days before starting Assassin's Creed. And then actually one of my very best friends, who is this director we were talking about, Amin, his wife, lost her battle to cancer a couple months ago as well. In fact, I had to leave Melbourne early because we thought she had like 48 hours left. And the instant the second show of This Gaming Life was over, I was on a plane back to LA because they told us she's not going to make it. She ended up making it about another month, which was I was grateful for that extra time. She had become one of my best friends, and she was also essentially my wife's sister. If it means my brother, they were sisters. Truly, spent so much time together. And Meg was with her through a lot of experiences that were just the two of them, and she was on the front lines of what she did, because this was a 3-year experience for Claire, and so those experiences have been big wake-up calls on the work-life balance. Again, being very direct and giving you probably a bigger answer than you expected, but just being honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I had balanced my schedule very precariously when I didn't know I had, until I was getting pulled away by things that, because I'd canceled family trips before, I'd come home early from trips, things like that, and been like, look, my career is important to me, and this is I feel justified in doing this. But this was something that, obviously, these were experiences, like sitting by my father's bedside. I was away from LA for all of January. Had my honeymoon was a week long. Because ironically I had to get started on Captain Alburaya, and I had to rush back to LA after my own honeymoon. And so it's like this had been a recurring theme the whole last 10 years. And I was finally put in a situation twice in a row. It's like I'm being bludgeoned over the head with this message that you need to leave space for these X factors, because there will be things that do I wouldn't even say matter more, but fully matter equally to you. And in that moment must be the priority. And it threw my schedule into complete disarray for the entire year. And it remains, actually, I'm still playing catch up to a degree. I'm actually finally, with AC done and with the rendezvous done, I'm finally kind of over the hump. But every single day, I've taken one day off in 2015, and it's been a mad scramble, and it's actually been one of the hardest years of my life. And that balance, perfecting, actually not even perfecting, treating that balance as a creative task equal to that of trying to better myself as a composer has been the lesson learned this year. And the truth is, there are people that like myself, that need an experience like this to learn that lesson. So I won't even say, like, I hope somebody who's potentially at a comparable moment in their life hears this and kind of heeds my advice or hears it as a cautionary tale or anything like that, because I needed to experience this. And I would wish that, as much as the pain I would never wish on someone, if you come out the better for it, I would wish somebody to have that wake-up call for themselves, because no one could have ever explained this to me better than life experienced it. And it's not like it was the first time I encountered hardships, but it was the first time I had encountered something that forced my hand this way. And it was a powerful lesson learned, or a lesson still being learned. I mean, I still have daily long conversations with certain people about this. So anyway, I know I've done a terrible job this entire interview of giving you like giant word salads to things that could have probably been said more succinctly, but just being, I feel I have this obsession with kind of radical honesty. And I also have this obsession with the idea of vulnerability, especially as an artist. You can't really tap into your own creative impulses unless you're very familiar with the sensation of vulnerability, which is why I'm unhesitant to speak very transparently about what I've been dealing with to you. The long and short of it, though, directly addressing the way you asked the question, and then I'll stop talking, was that Meg's and my sort of soldiering through all of this has been an essential part of discovering that work-life balance concept. I can't imagine how I would have, what my path of coping would have been like if I were single. And if not just even single, but with someone that I had been with for, I did the math, the nerd that I am, February 23rd of 2016, in a few months from now, I will have, that day marks the first day wherein Meg and I have been in a relationship for the majority of my life, where I will cross the 50% line on that day. And obviously, presuming all goes to plan, the percentage of life not together is just going to obviously shrink indefinitely from that point forward. If I had not been in a relationship with someone without that kind of background, this probably would have been a deal breaker year, because it's been very difficult for me to be emotionally available as a husband when I'm simultaneously processing some pretty kind of severe blows with needing to work harder than I've ever had to work. It was like all cylinders had to be at 10 all the time, and that being an awesome, fun husband was probably the sacrifice that had to be made. And if I wasn't coming into that with 15 years of built-in foundation, I wouldn't have faulted anyone from saying, well, the hell with this. So, in any case, that I do think it's important for people to discover, however they discover, how they find that balance. And for some people, it's a very strict, like, I don't work weekends, I don't work after 6 o'clock, and I just need to figure out, I just can't book myself more than what those parameters allow. I've never been that way. If someone offers me something that I am in love with, I'm like, I'll figure out a way to make it work, because because this is inspiring and I want to be a part of this and I want you in my life because you inspire me. I've always been the type to just say, look, I don't care about working weekends. I don't care about working till midnight. I'll do that 7 days a week indefinitely if I have to. But I can't do that all the time, I've discovered, because the moment you need more time for anything, you suddenly discover I'm booked. I'm booked for, like I was staring at the beginning of this year and I was like, I have commitments that go 2 years down the road. And I'm like, how do I just suddenly add in time? I have to synthesize time. That, quantum physics notwithstanding, that's quite difficult to do.
Yeah.
So, in any case.
Well, I love your radical honesty. I love your vulnerability. I love your everything ties in together, and it comes out in your music, and it comes out in the way that we've experienced your work so far. Austin, thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking with us and speaking with me. And I'm a big fan of yours. And
you're very kind, and it was really nice. Part of why I was really looking forward to this chat was because our chat in Melbourne, where you instantly struck me as someone of a similar bent in that way. You did not strike me as somebody that was putting up this huge shell or wearing a face that you thought would like impress me or something. Because anytime someone does that, I'm always like, I'm not worthy of your little game here. So why we can't just talk as if we just met in a coffee shop or something? Because that's who I am. I'm not deserving of anything other than that. And you were very just immediately kind of real and fun to talk to. I mean, you both were because I was running around and I had been talking to some other students to students, I should say, and I'm used to that dynamic, and it's always one that's very like deferential, where people are looking to me for some kind of answer, and I'm always trying to make what I teach them to not look to me for answers. To say the answer is within you, whether it's just living your life with confidence, or whether it's you. Like if I'm talking to someone who kind of fits into that aspiring composer camp, where I'm saying, the key to your success is to developing a perspective and being opinionated and having tastes that are kind of proprietarily your own, that come from just sort of experiencing life and realizing that you can just go out and be you. And you read all these be yourself kind of bullshit Hallmark cards and stuff. But the reason why we get bombarded with all those things is because they actually are quite true. And anyway, you were one of those people that I felt like I don't really need to explain any of this to this guy. And that's
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We can just chat, it really is my distinct pleasure to come on and
thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so Assassin's Creed Syndicate, the soundtrack and the game are coming out simultaneously on October 23rd. If you've pre-ordered some special editions, soundtrack's coming with it as well. That's how I'm getting mine.
Different. That's actually different.
You're kidding.
The collector's edition soundtrack is 1 disc long, and it contains some music on the main album, but because the collector's edition of the game is primarily catering to people that want to get the game in the biggest, baddest form, I said, let's throw in some bonus material that is not going to be available on the main soundtrack. Because, I didn't want the main soundtrack to be this archive of the score. I wanted it to be a listening experience that was satisfying. So I was merciless. I cut well over 50% of my score off the soundtrack album. It's still an hour and a half long despite that, because the score was, like 3 hours and almost 3.5 hours. And so I got the soundtrack album to about 87, 88 minutes through a very, very conscientious whittling phase, because I'm like, look, if you're buying an album, it should feel like an album and not just this catalog of cues. But when I'm writing a score, I am writing a big stack of cues. It's a different thing. So I've always taken the album making process as its own endeavor. But with the collector's edition, anyway, I told them I'd like to, partly was that I was nowhere near ready to have the soundtrack done by the time they needed the collector's edition done, because they had to start manufacturing them in anticipation of the release. So I had this deadline months ago to give them the clip. So I chose some tracks and I said, look, these are some that I know I'm going to be killing off the main album, but I don't think they're bad pieces of music. So I hope at least. So let's put them there. They'll have a good home there. There are some pieces that are on both.
Yeah.
So that they're not like two different scores. And then there's also music that's on neither. That's just never going to be heard outside the game. I might make a SoundCloud playlist of like lost cues or something. But
well, I look forward to experiencing them in all forms, in game, in soundtrack, and everything.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to force you to buy two things, because that's not what I'm after here.
No, I'm really looking forward to every form of the music. Thank you so much, Austin, and we look forward to what you come up with next.
Well, I appreciate it a lot. We'll have to talk again.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.